and then prepping some of the other pieces. So let me walk you through where I've gotten started for the most part, and then we'll talk about what we've got to go to next. So essentially this is the lower hull, and this comes in like 3 pieces. So the first thing you do is you glue this the lower planetary sensor into a ring, and then that ring glues into the lower portion of that. And it does make for virtually seamless construction. I think it looks really nice when it all comes together like that, and with these pre-cut holes or die-cut holes or molded holes, that's going to pass a lot of light through there. So the next step, so let's talk about this piece here, which is the first piece of photo etch. So essentially there's a piece that comes into the back. Prior to that it was just an open hole, and this is a piece of styrene that I went ahead and took my little drill and my Dremel and drilled all of that section out, and then put the piece of photo etch in. I think you can see right there that that's that piece of photo etch right from the back, and that glued in really nice, and then I'll put in red behind it, and so that will kind of look, I guess that's your look right there, with a red bulb. You can imagine a red bulb being in behind there and lighting that up. Of course that'll be the color of the hull once you are in and running. So that's the lower hull. Pre-construction, I think, is probably the best phrase for that. On the upper hull, here is, again, these are kind of like 3 pieces that go together as they come in, and so essentially it's stack, stack, stack as you come together. So what I've got here is the bridge is in. I have cut my first hole here for an anti-collision light. I am not going to cut out these windows because there's no photo etch for it, first of all, and I do have the Paragraphics USS Enterprise photo etch set for the JJ Prize, but there aren't any photo etch for that rear window, and I'm just going to leave it. I'll paint it. Maybe I'll figure out how to paint it, but we'll leave it at that. I haven't put any of the glass in yet, of course. I've also drilled my holes for a red and green and a white nav light on each side, and I've also drilled holes for, let's see if I can find the piece. Yep, here it is. So this essentially kind of fits in as such, and then this piece goes in after the top of it. So I've drilled holes. I'm going to put a red and a green nav light in these larger holes, and then these white little holes to the upward of those, I'm going to do white collision, because apparently this has 5 anti-collision lights on the top. So I've also, there's nubbins here that I shaved off and drilled for the anti-collision light. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anti-collision lights there. And then there's a piece of clear styrene or clear plastic that goes in here for the impulse crystal, and that will have probably a blue, and I'll have to check the color of the crystal for it, a blue, just a blue SMD or a blue 3mm bulb that will poke up through the bottom there. I've already got the hole cut for it, and that'll light that up. And it also lights up, it's going to be really subtle. I don't know if you can see in there, but there is these teeth or dentite trim, and there's a piece of glass that fits up in there that'll light that up. So when that's lit with that blue LED SMD in there, that'll light, and then you'll have a subtle lighting. That'll probably go right around there. Not sure how all that's going to look, but that's how the kit's built. So we'll proceed from there. I am going to shave off these nubs for the phasers, because if you have decals or anything that goes in there, it just makes it really tough to do. So that is the upper saucer, and that should be fairly straightforward. And so that is kind of done from a construction standpoint. On the secondary hull, or the engineering hull, the instructions are to cut, for the Paragraphics kit, are to cut out these 2 holes on this side and these 2 holes on this side, and then you've got this part right here. You've got that part right there that'll go over both of those. And so it'll light block and it'll provide venting there. That'll be really nice. You're also instructed to cut out these holes right here. So there's one there and one on that side. I have to use a file to clean those up a little bit. And those will be filled in with these vents here for light blocking and put together. I did not use the refit version of the JJ Prize, which is this piece of photo etch. I'm not going to use that. I will start bending up the bridge and bending up the landing bay, shuttle bay. And then, of course, the big challenge is to carefully bend up all of the nacelle work here, which, you know, that's like constructing a V8 engine with my skill set. I have no idea how that's going to come across. But that's the initial plan. Now, I am not going to do a rotating Bassard in the nacelles, but with this assembly, I'm going to have the nacelle caps in there. I'm going to have these will be painted black, light blue for the nacelles, and then I'll do a blue light bulb in the assembly, and you'll see what that's like. Essentially what I've done is put this together so far, just kind of a taped mock-up, if you will, just to see how it's going to fit, and it does fit quite nice. I'm really pleased. It's not going to be any gap in there to fill per se. Once this is put together, there's virtually no gap that I can see, which is going to be nice. And apparently the way this saddle and the nacelle and so forth looks like this is going to line up really quite nicely as far as nacelle droop or any of that stuff. So kudos to you, Revell Germany, for the engineering that you went into the saddle. Everyone from Boyd to Lou to anyone who's done this online says how thin this plastic is, and they're right. But that's you know, the engineering behind it with the multi-contour curves seems to provide quite a bit of support. I am going to put a, so again, once you've got the back here, I'm going to put the shuttle bay in here. There is a spot for an anti-collision light there. And then I have to figure out what's going on. So this has crystal in it. That has some kind of crystal in it. I'm not sure what that color is. I'm going to check the video. And then I'm not sure if this is going to be an anti-collision light there. And if there's room to put it in there. So I'm just going to have to see what all of that does when it comes together. So the next step is to light block the inside of the nacelle. Before I go any further, is to light block this with a couple coats of 3 coats of black and then a coat of white to start bouncing the stuff in there. And unfortunately, the way that this goes together is that once you've got the 2 halves of the nacelle light blocked, then what you have to do is glue in significant pieces of clear. So there's a piece of clear that goes in here. There's 3 or 4 pieces of clear that go into that right there, around to that hook. There's a piece of clear that goes into this, and the clear back. So essentially, before you paint the outside of this, you've got to glue in and fasten in all of the clear glass, which I don't like because that means you've got to tape it off on the outside. And I did buy the Aztec dummy, thank you Lou, the Aztec dummy paint mask for this because I'm going to try my first set of Aztecing. But, you know, so all that's got to be taped off. That piece has got to be masked off, and then of course the whole nacelle assembly has to be masked off. So really you have to build this in pieces until you're ready to, you have to put it all together before you're ready to paint it, in essence. So once that's light blocked and put together, then we can go ahead and do the outside. Now, one thing, this part right here is a secondary part. So the nacelle comes in, and one thing you have to do is glue in this piece right here. That gets glued in, and then that's on the outside, and then the inboard side of the nacelle. This is the outboard and the inboard. That nacelle gets added in. You can see the part here as I've glued it in. It comes in from right there down and around. That's pretty challenging to do because what happens is that this right here, if you don't get that all the way put in there, that sticks out. And so when you go to assemble it, what happens is you have opportunity for a sizable gap at the rear of the nacelle. So if you're not careful, you're going to have a pretty sizable gap back here. And you can see that mine is actually still a bit of a gap right there, but I think that'll be enough that I can fill that with putty and not be too disappointed on how it's going to turn out. But it's still there. So what I did on this nacelle is I actually took my blade and I shaved back this inner piece right here. I shaved it down so that I was behind and inward of the outer plastic. And so for the most part that seems to pre-eliminated any gaps or minimize the gaps that are going to be in there. This front housing really fits nice, and so what I don't know yet, and that's kind of the next thing I'll investigate, is if I can if I can tape this off, glue it all in, and then do my pieces of paragraphics over those, and then add in the deflector dish, so that I can paint all this in one shot and then add the deflector dish afterwards. So I'm not sure if I can do that. I haven't looked at the instructions that far ahead, but hopefully I can, because I would hate to have to, it would just be really messy to have to install the deflector dish and then install that part right there that you see I'm fiddling with a little bit. It does fit nice, but it would be a nightmare to detail paint all this with that deflector dish already added with the clear parts. So that is the first part. Oh, and the other thing that I did, there's this piece here that fits into the belly, and the belly, in order to get this to all line up, you can see I've got a bit of a seam right there, but that's because I only glued one side of this. But what I did is I put this together, and then I enclosed it or pushed down from the inside so that this would all be even, and then just glued this half here in, so that when I take this apart or when I go to glue it together, this is all done. But this is got a couple pieces of clear plastic that go in here before you paint. So this is going to be a significant mask and clear paint, keeping it clean, neat, and tidy challenge on this particular Enterprise kit. It is kind of cool putting it together so far. But I can already see where there's going to be, for me, a significant amount of challenge, in addition to trying to do the aztecing on the sides of the hull and the pylons and then on the nacelles. So this is the first half of update number 1 for the USS Enterprise 1701 and under the Into Darkness JJ Prize construction build. So I will continue working on this. Probably the next step now is to go ahead and light block the interior of the nacelles, light block the interior of the secondary hull and that saddle separately, and then light block the hulls. And I am going to use a different stand. So here's a normal stand here on these Revell Germany kits, is that they sandwich together, and then you mount them on top of the big Star Trek emblem. I want to make sure that this works for putting a different stand in here, and then I'll just do our traditional tube up to the belly, find the center of gravity, put to a tube up to the belly, and then we'll be good to go. So for now, stay with me when I'm back for the second half of update number 1. Thank you. Okie dokie, welcome back to the second half of update number 1 on the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 from the Into Darkness Revell kit 1/500 scale. Just making some progress here, and I've kind of had a bit of a rude awakening on what this is going to take to actually get put together. So we'll talk a little bit about where we're at the moment and some of the new discoveries and new challenges. So I guess we'll start here. Here is the photo etch kit for the hangar bay, and that has been primed and glued together. I did not put the other pieces in yet, so what is left to go in would be the hangar bay back piece, and then these shelves that go into the second layer, and then there are some additional shuttlecraft here that I have to paint up. And and we'll put in here in some way, shape, or fashion or form. So it's a big doings for a little piece that may or may not be seen. In that, what you have to do, the instructions say to take out from this spot here, come up, and then go across down to the other spot there in order to make room so you can see into there. And then this, of course, would take the place of that back hatch, so you can see kind of what you have to take away. If you put that together, you can see kind of what you have to take away, and then you have to do, I guess, a little piece of clear plastic to channel light back to this piece here, which I think is going to be cool. But so I need to put a little tiny piece of clear styrene, and I don't have any, so I'll have to get some piece of clear styrene on here on this to transmit the light. Do have the photo etch pieces put onto the side of the secondary hull, and that looks really nice, so I think that's going to be great when that comes through. I did drill a hole for the anti-collision light that I'm going to put on the back, and I haven't drilled a hole yet for an anti-collision light on the bottom, so we'll have to do that next. I did put together the bridge, and the bridge will actually go into the glass, and then that fits into this particular piece like so, somehow like that. So I think you can see, actually I think it probably fits a little tighter up there. This is my first time I fit this in. So once that's in, you'll be able to see a little bit of interior. I do have to paint that up yet, and then we will figure out where that goes. I did the one side of the Bassard collector in the photo etch, so that is ready to go in. I'm not going to do spinners. I am going to paint this probably a duck egg blue for inside of there, or maybe a gray, maybe some kind of gray. But that was kind of a new experience for me, putting that piece together, and it actually came out pretty well. And I have to do the other one yet, but that was an experience in bending and doing that photo etch in 3D in essence. On top of the main hull, I have added in, and again, so this is kind of fluid at the moment, trying to figure out these lights. So my lights currently would be green nav, red nav, white nav. And then all of the photos that I have seen show now 4 lights, 1, 2, 3, 4 lights here in the corners. And I've drilled holes for those, and I'm waiting for some really tiny SMDs to come in to mount up into those to get the right color to come in. And then there are 4 spotlights here that I've drilled in that apparently light up the registry, the NCC 1701, and the registry across there, as opposed to letting the light shine out from the from the bridge. I also have room for an anti-collision light there, and then I've got again red and green nav that are going to go here and here, and then a white anti-collision there and there and there. So currently on top, I really only have 3 anti-collision lights, so 1, 2, and 3. But this piece here, I have seen several people do a double set of lights, like right there, or a double set of lights right here. So I don't think I'm going to have these 4 lights flash. And I think the reason for that is because in the original Series TOS, of course, we know on these 4 corners almost exactly, you do have the 4 square lights. And I think maybe that this kit was hearkening back to those 4 square lights. Plus, I'm already going to have a blue light in here. So I think that I'm going to be fine with an anti-collision there, 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 the back of the hull that we mentioned, and then I think I'm going to put 1 anti-collision light on the bottom of the hull in the belly, again after I drill a hole for my power coming up into that. with just one additional anti-collision light, I think probably up right here at the front of the nacelle almost, and then we'll put a light in there. And the reason I want to do that is because I'm not keen on putting those 4 lights, more than about 4 lights, on my little Flytron.com circuit that I have for the double blink circuit. I think there's a voltage regulator in there that more than about 3 tiny or 4 tiny lights in there, you might overwhelm that. And upon further review of more online images and some video and GIFs of this, they have a set of, again, white navs on the bottom. And since it's my kit, I'm going to actually do a red and a green nav and a white nav at the front. And I'm not going to do anything back here because that's where the neck comes in. You've got plenty of light here as that goes. And then one more set of lights that I think are going to be important based on a lot of the photos and some of the kits that I've seen done online and some of the builds. So one more that I'm going to do, if we can get this to close up a little bit, maybe, there we go. Of course, now with primer and light blocking and all that in here. So I have seen people put 2 tiny little lights where that neck comes together, and I'm not sure how that fits in. Oh, I see now that this is actually going to recess into there. And so I have seen people put 2 tiny little lights, and it looks like I'm going to have to do them in this area right here, and one on both sides of that. And I think that's going to look cool, kind of like just lighting up on the deflector dish, kind of giving us a different type of light there. So that is more lights than I had thought. And then I'm also going to use, because the flashing, and these flash on the navs, so I want those navs to flash at a different rate than the double blink. So I'm going to use a second Flytron.com chip, and that will flash at that 1 per second, which is slow enough. It actually it'll look pretty nice on these navs here. So I've got to drill those in, and then the next step, once I've discussed, now that I've determined what all the lighting is, the next step is to then add lighting to the interior, my LED strip lights. So I think that there's enough space in here that I'm going to add an LED strip light here, and here, here, and here, if there's enough space. If not, I'll have to come out here and do one that goes, like one here with 4 around the base right there. Then I'm going to put an LED strip light next to each of these windows, and there looks like there's plenty of space for it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of windows, and that is going to be LED strip tape. Then I'll do SMDs for the nav lights, and that's on the lower hull. On the upper hull, I'll do my nav lights with those SMDs that I used last time. It worked really fantastic. And then one light coming up here through for the impulse crystal, and then one for each of these lights from the bottom. And I think that'll light up pretty well this area under the bridge. But I might try to add, just like I did on my C, depending on how this fits in and lights up. That's going to go something like that, maybe. I'm not sure. I'll have to figure that out. So however that goes in, I want to put some light in there, and that would be done via either an additional LED or with a couple of strip lights. So we're going to have to do a little bit of finagling here to make this come together. But still exciting times. I've got the nacelles have been color and light blocked, and the saddle has been light blocked, and now it's just simply a matter of starting to put some of this together and start to wire. So that's the next step. We'll start with wiring up some lights after I finish up this last Bassard, and then assembling the Bassard, and I still have quite a bit of work on the lighting determined on that. So I might have something a little special, and we'll see what occurs when that comes together. So next steps, definitely working on putting together this 1, 2, 3 strips here, and you use that little piece, and you use that piece that I've built, and I got to cut out one more of the triangles, which is right there, one more nut. So that's kind of a whole stack together that you can see in the assembly here on the instructions on the paragraphics. So the one thing I was a little disappointed in that I didn't have was any kind of decal or anything for the base here. And rather than just being a super plain shuttle bay hangar, and I don't have the skill to free paint something in there, but what I might do, that's some pretty thin black and white vinyl tape, and I might just do a strip across here of black, and then a strip down the center, or 2 strips of black, and then 1 strip down of white down the center of that, before I put in the back and before I put in these pieces. And then whatever color I paint these, I think I can do like a strip, line it with black, or just to do a little bit more decorative look than what it currently has. So I'm going to have to do a little noodling on that one to make sure it does what I want to do. And then I've got to paint this with, this has been primed, but I got to paint it with actual paint. And so I got to figure out color choices, and I don't have that done. So with that, this ends the update number 1 for the USS Enterprise. Big doings, and we'll come together with some of this stuff as a new example. I got to get this primed and painted, and we thank you for your viewing. Thank you. If you enjoy it, like that video, and hit the subscribe button, and share it if you really like it. Appreciate that. But for now, this is the Sloppy Modeler signing off, and we will be back with you in update number 2 of the USS Enterprise, the JJ Prize, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.